Okay, everybody, welcome to the pilot episode of what we like to call Titan Top 10. It is covering the 10 biggest hits of WWE this last week on Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. I am your host, JR Perez, and with me is my tag team partner, Kenneth Dickens. How you doing, Kenny?
What's going on, everybody?
So, as this is our first pilot episode, one of the things we want to do is go over the 10 most joyful good parts of WWE this last week. We have selected 4 from Raw, 3 from NXT, and 3 from SmackDown. So we'll just go ahead and get started. The first one I picked out was the Asuka versus Charlotte Flair match. As you know, these two women have a lot of history with each other. They wrestled at WrestleMania 34. They had a couple matches on SmackDown. And this is again, they had some feuds going back to the TLC in 2019. And then they had faced off in a champion versus champion matchup where Asuka being the Raw champion versus Charlotte Flair being the NXT champion. So you give your thoughts about what you thought about that match.
I mean, you can't go wrong with a Charlotte Flair match. Every dance partner she's been with so far has, taken her to another level. And to see her and Asuka go at it again, I can see them wrestle all day, 7 days a week. It's just something about Asuka and Flair that you can tell that they really have that really good chemistry together. It's just like when she wrestles Sasha Banks, they can go for hours. And if like Asuka's history in the business, she works well with a lot of people. So her pairing up with Flair that last night was really good for me.
Yeah. And one of the things about Asuka is one of the best performers in WWE, and then Charlotte Flair is, as I tell people, the reason why she's the queen. It's not just a tagline. She has been one of the most dependable stars in general that they've had since she's been brought up to the main roster back in the summer of 2015. The fact that she's going hard on all 3 shows, especially during this current pandemic situation, really to me is not a negative. It's a huge blessing because she brings that star power because she is a star and she's one of the most athletically gifted wrestlers in WWE history. And they had a great match. Obviously, it's not going to go anywhere right now because Charlotte is in the NXT brand, and then also Asuka is going to end up facing Nia Jax at Backlash. So. But it was a great match. The second one is the continuous storyline between the Raw Tag Team Champions, the Street Profits, and the Viking Raiders. This week we saw them bowling. It's another segment that they've done. We've seen them do axe throwing. We see them do basketball. And for me, at first, I didn't really understand it, but then I realized this was very reminiscent of a storyline between MVP, who was then the United States champion, and Matt Hardy, where they were having like this game of wits and skills against each other. And so I know a lot of people may want, a more serious take because Viking Raiders or before the War Raiders and War Machine are such a great tag team, and Street Profits are a lot of charisma. But I'm starting to get into it because I just think it's funny and it's really giving them a more dynamic situation to eventually, when they get back into the ring, it should hopefully lead to a bigger feud.
Yeah, I mean, at first when they were saying the different type of competition they were going to go up against, for me it was almost like what's going to happen next. So they did the first thing. I think it was the basketball, and then they did the axe throwing, and then it led into, and I was like, watch, they're going to end up doing maybe like miniature. They did miniature golf, and then they did bowling. So like each one kind of like played like a strength between the two, but it gave you like that comedic feel. And I have to give it up to Montez Ford because he makes those programs. He is very funny and he's like off the wall. I don't know if a lot of that stuff is that he says is scripted. If it is, whoever's writing for him is a genius at this point. But I can't wait to see what's going to happen next with them. I'm assuming that the last part will be them wrestling at Backlash, but We have another Monday Night Raw coming up tomorrow. So hopefully, let's just see maybe what they're gonna do. They might do a cook-off. You never know at this point.
That actually would be pretty interesting, as if they did a cook-off, because if you imagine, I'm assuming possibly a barbecue situation, because the Viking Raiders, you always see them with turkey legs. So I could definitely see them having a barbecue cook-off, and that'd be pretty funny too, especially if they can find a way to bring in like a celebrity chef, for like someone like Robert Irvine or Bobby Flay. That'd be pretty funny. And they're both great talents. Montez Ford, he is as great as he is in the ring. He's also great outside the ring. And also shout out to his wife, Bianca Belair, who did his seamed and created his pants for that miniature golfing skit.
Yeah, because I've known that she's done a lot of their costume design. So as far as like their in-ring stuff, because she does her own, and I know she does his as well. And I mean, he's lucky to have her at that point, because that saves you a lot of money. I think she said that he saw a pair of pants was like $200, and she went out and made it look even 10 times better than the store.
Yeah. The next match was actually what kicked off Raw was Aleister Black versus Seth Rollins. As far as ring work rides, I think these are two of the best talents WWE has to offer. Aleister Black has such a great his personality in the ring, his charisma, and what he stands for is great. Seth Rollins, a lot of people enjoy him being a heel. I think he's the better heel than babyface, but their match was really good. What did you think of this match, and actually, what do you see they're going from forward with this match with them?
I mean, with Seth Rollins, you can't go wrong. He's Mr. Monday Night at this point. I know, Rob Van Dam before he was, Mr. Monday Night Raw, but I have to give it to Seth Rollins. He has taken the brand through, hell and high waters and put it on his back and just made sure that rocket ship continues going up. I believe, WWE believes in him, so they're going to let him go out there and be creative and entertain the fans. It sucks that we're going through this whole coronavirus stuff right now, because I just feel like he'll most likely would have gotten the crowd even more into this match. I mean, you can imagine there's no fans there. You just had the NXT crowd there, and they were hyped about it, even though they probably was paid to be hyped, but everybody else at home was tweeting about this match. Him and Aleister Black going back and forth was great. I believe they in the Indies, they actually fought each other once as well, because I mean, you always end up wrestling somebody else in the Indies and then fighting them again at in WWE. But I would love to see it again. Hopefully, this continues on. Maybe they might have a tag match at Backlash. Maybe they'll wrestle again tomorrow. You never know.
Yeah, and one of the things I will say is I'm just hope they stay involved. I know that there's probably going to end up being a Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio, but keeping Seth Rollins, Buddy Murphy, and Austin Theory together and going against, I would say, the babyface faction or group of Rey Mysterio, Humberto Carrillo, as well as Aleister Black would be definitely something that I think will pique the audience interest, because they're big supporters of Rey Mysterio, big supporters of Aleister Black, and I think it will help build Humberto Carrillo up to their star power. So only time will tell. The last one I have for Raw is the re-debut of Raw Talk. As we've seen on, I believe it was either late Sunday or early Monday morning, WWE rolled out their new network tier, their free tier, and one of the things they gave was Raw Talk on the new tier, hosted by Charlie Caruso as well as Samoa Joe. And one of the interesting things with Raw is the way it went off the air was this struggle between Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, and then it just quickly went off the air, like, as if you needed to tune in to something. But instead of next week, we're tuning right into the network to see Raw Talk. What did you think of Raw Talk? What do you hope to get out of Raw Talk as we move forward?
I mean, I'm hoping I didn't get to catch Raw Talk because I was dealing with a couple of things out, off the air. But from what I was hearing, I heard good things. I'm hoping that they give you more behind the scenes stuff. I hope they play into the, like the storylines when it comes into like the last matches, almost like the way WCW was back in the day when they used to cut off, but they used to give you like that. They used to tell you like, hey, here's the what you missed when it went off air, and you had to go online to like really look for it. I'm glad that it's on the network and it's free, so that gives more people, it'll give them more eyes. I know they talked about having a tier service before, so having this free tier service now is great, because for so many people who canceled their service and then probably thinking of coming back to the WWE network, you can still watch a good amount of content, because I believe you can watch Raw after probably like the next day or 2 days after that on the network for free.
Yes. And I just like in general a review, especially to go over it, and the even more so for pay-per-views. I hope they do something like that for NXT tonight. NXT Takeover in Your Houses tonight. We're recording Sunday, June 7th. So it'll be interesting to see if they continue this. I liked it. A lot of people love talking smack when Renee Young was doing it with Daniel Bryan. So I expect more out of it. And both Samoa Joe has proven to be as great as he was in the ring. He's equally great on the mic. And Charlie Caruso is a phenomenal talent who's not only worked for WWE, but she's also worked for ESPN as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that was a great pairing. I'm sorry. Just a really quick recap on that. But I'm glad that they paired those two up with Charlie Caruso and Samoa Joe, because they make a great team, because they both are very knowledgeable, and their characters play off to everybody else that tries to show off.
Yes, I agree. And they do have a natural chemistry and they work well together. As we move on to NXT, one of the first ones was I selected because I think the 4 people involved were great talents, and I love the ending, was Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae versus Keith Lee and Mia Yim. NXT started off with a singles one-on-one women's matchup. It was Mia versus Candice. There were some schmas that went on where we saw 4 other individuals get involved. We saw Tegan Nox, we saw Dakota Kai, as well as a few others. And then Johnny Gargano came out as well as Keith Lee, and it ended up being a mixed tag match. One of the things I liked, the biggest part I liked about it, was the way Johnny Gargano got heat. Basically, both of them were in Gargano and Keith Lee were in street clothes because they weren't prepared to wrestle, and they came out. So Johnny Gargano looked like he just got out of his car, and that's just foreshadowing. And as we get to the end, Keith Lee, I believe, was in a situation where he was going to powerbomb Gargano, and Gargano raked Keith Lee's eyes with his car keys. Mia Yim went to go check on him, and then Candice rolled her up for the 1, 2, 3. What do you think of the match? And in addition to that, just real quickly, what do you hope, or what do you think of the heel pairing of Candice and Gargano as we move forward?
I mean, I'm still getting used to having both Candice and Johnny Gargano as far as like just being heels, because they've been so face the whole entire time that they've been there. Even when Johnny Gargano was had his heart pretty much torn between him and Ciampa, and then he just kept on fighting, and like he always said, he was like the heartbeat of NXT. So to see this new side of him, I know he was he played a heel in the Indies, but just to see that now to trickle down to NXT, I'm actually happy for it, because this is giving him something new, because he's done so much in the company, and it's just like, what's next? And I'm so glad that he could reinvent himself in a way for this audience to see something new from him. Candice is she's a gem. I've met her a handful of times. I've seen her wrestle so many times in different, as a heel and as a face. So this is a little more darker than the other times. So I can't wait to see what else they have moving forward. Keith Lee, he's a star. I mean, strap the rocket on his back and just let him go. I can't wait to see him in the main roster as far as like where he's going to end up, say Raw, SmackDown. But for right now, I'm really enjoying him on NXT. I know he has a match tonight against Johnny Gargano for the North American title. So I'm really hoping that they keep it on him. I mean, that would be like the smart thing to do. And Mia Yim, I mean, eventually she's going to get that title shot. I know that they have a storyline going on with Flair right now, and Rhea Ripley, but you have to put her in that title picture as well soon enough.
Yeah. Well, moving on. One of the things that they did this time was called NXT Prime Target. NXT Prime Target was essentially extended previews, hype videos for the two big matches on tonight's NXT Takeover in Your House match. Velveteen Dream, who is going to face Adam Cole, the NXT champion, and I believe the term is called Last Chance, where if he loses, he will not get another opportunity against Adam Cole for the NXT championship. And then the other one they did was for the women's triple threat match for the NXT Women's Championship between Charlotte Flair, Io Shirai, as well as Rhea Ripley. Real quickly, for me, I just loved how they went into their personal lives. They went into their homes, essentially. I think they did a great job. They showed how motivated everyone is to perform to the best of their abilities, to excel, and to be either the dominant champion in Adam Cole's situation and Charlotte Flair's situation, or the dominant challenger who would walk out with the respective championships. In this situation, would be Velveteen Dream, Io, and Rhea. One of the things I loved about it is because to me, it just recertifies the star power that Charlotte has, and that she is the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest women's superstar in WWE. I loved when they talked about how when she went back to NXT, everybody said, you don't go here, you don't go here. And she said, I made here. If it wasn't, I built this place. And it's true. Her, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Becky Lynch really put it on the map, even though Paige and at the time Emma were the ones who were the first women's matchup on NXT TakeOver when they debuted on the WWE Network, and they were the ones who kind of jump-started NXT in that women's division, because Paige was the first NXT Women's Champion, if I remember correctly. But it was really the next four women, as they call the four horsewomen of wrestling, that really put that division on the map and put on some of the most exciting matchups. And, eventually we got to Sasha versus Bayley at TakeOver, Brooklyn, and then even when before that, Charlotte versus Natty for the vacant NXT Women's Championship at a future TakeOver event. So, so what did you think of the Prime Target?
I mean, NXT always delivers when it comes to these things. They're always, shining a light on something. I love the way they always do their vignettes for stuff. When it comes to hyping up a match, I loved it. I wish they would have gave me a little bit more when it came towards like with Adam Cole and Velveteen Dream. When it comes to this match, I'm pulling for Adam Cole because he's been the champ so long, and I think he's just gonna end that reign there when he moves up from NXT. But I want to see what else is gonna happen like afterwards. What's going leaning forward for Wednesday. Like, what type of vignette are you gonna give us going into it? Like, is he gonna get somebody else to be his opponent? Is he gonna retire the title and move on? Because there's been talks of him not signing his NXT contract yet. So, I mean, you just gotta wait and see.
And then the last one I have for NXT was the main event. It was the finals of the interim NXT Cruiserweight Championship between El Hijo de Fantasma and Drake Maverick. First off, El Hijo de Fantasma, who was also, if I remember correctly, King Cuerno in Lucha Underground when Lucha Underground was on TV. Drake Maverick, who previously was known as Rockstar Spud in TNA, Impact Wrestling. El Hijo de Fantasma is a great wrestler. He had great feuds in Mexico, especially with Dr. Wagner. For those who are not familiar with Lucha Libre, I highly recommend looking it up because they're great talents. In addition to that, Rockstar Spud is one of the most, I think just in general, even outside of wrestling, is just a very great character and has great storylines. And what he's done for WWE with the 24/7 championship, what he did with TNA, being part of Dixie Carter's faction, I think he's just a great performer overall. What did you think of this matchup? And then in addition to that, How did you feel at the end with El Hijo winning the NXT interim championship, cruiserweight championship, as well as Drake Maverick finding out he got a contract at the end of it?
I have to say that I was really looking forward to this match for the simple fact that WWE took me on a roller coaster ride when it came to this tournament. Once you knew that, you know, the names were released of the people that were getting let go from the company, and Drake Maverick's name was on that list, I was like, just like everybody else was saying, like, oh, but wait a minute, isn't he going to be in the cruiserweight tournament? And they said, like, yeah, he's still going to participate in it. Then they said, like, yeah, he's only there for like 2 matches. So I was already thinking, like, he's just going to get eliminated. And he just kept on winning. He lost the first one, and then he just blew it out the water like the Bulls in the finals, and just kept on going and going and going. And it was just like a movie. You were sitting there pulling for him. Every single match he did, he went all out. It was like watching somebody in the Indies just battle themselves to try and get this contract. And, you know, I said before, I was talking to somebody else when I said, like, my wife, who really doesn't follow wrestling like that, she was looking at the match and she was pulling for him because she was just like, you know, if he loses, what happens next? So she kind of like tuned in. So for her, it was like a movie, you know. And then at the end, you know, he obviously lost. And then Triple H ended up coming out and giving him a contract, which is, for me, like, I clapped when that happened. But at the same time, I was like, wait a minute. Like, you don't even know what you're signing. They could just be one more match, or it could just be like they're gonna give you a hot dog and a soda, and you know, and sit you down. But you know, shout outs to WWE, man. They definitely took us on a movie. I'm loving their storylines when it comes to some of these things now.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely was a giant roller coaster, and I'm just happy that Drake Maverick is gonna stay with them. Like I say, he's a phenomenal performer. What he's done for WWE, and as well as previously in Impact Wrestling, was just a great thing, and he was a great performer, and I just love him, and I can't wait to see more from him, especially because he didn't really wrestle for WWE until this tournament. So look forward to seeing him be in the cruiserweight division, because I think he does have star capabilities for the cruiserweight division.
Definitely.
As we finish up, we have our next 3 for SmackDown. Let's talk about the Mr. Money in the Bank, Otis versus King Corbin. The reason I wanted to talk about this matchup was because Otis has been one of the shining stars during this whole current era of wrestling on WWE television. What he's done, his capability to be a performer both in the ring, out of the ring, being Mr. Money in the Bank, he has a huge fan following now, especially with kids. As we find out in the demographics that people talk about, I don't know where they're going to go with the Money in the Bank situation, but I just like the way they set up this match with King Corbin. He took his crown. He really showed that it's going to take a lot to put down Otis. I think they're kind of building him up to being like, he's very reminiscent of Hacksaw Jim Duggan to me. And so he's not going to be somebody that I think is going to be easy to take out. If you're gonna beat him, it's gonna take a lot to take him out. I hope that it gets to a situation where he gets back into that main event. I think it's gonna be a while. I know some fans are saying, oh, you know, I don't think he should be able to cash in, especially I think because he was in a tag team with his partner Tucker. But what is your thoughts about Otis as a performer?
I love Otis. I think he's a national treasure, man. Like, he's just funny all around. And what's good about it is that's just him. He's not playing a character. Like, you know, people in WWE say, like, this is who he is in real life. Like, he's always, you know, doing practical jokes and acting silly and just being him. So for WWE to, like, let him be him and connect with the audience, I think it's great. The storyline that he has with Mandy Rose right now is, you know, something that we all loved. It was kind of confusing in the beginning, but now we're kind of just wondering, like, what's the end game of this? He's Mr. Money in the Bank. I think a lot of people were pulling for him. I know I was pulling for him.
Looks like we lost Kenny. Let me just finish up real quick. Otis is Sonya Deville is equally impressive in the for WWE, especially on SmackDown. Her whole character, the swag, her attitude, her demeanor is, I think, second to none. What she's been able to do for herself and as her character. I think the whole focus of her feud with Mandy Rose was to make Mandy Rose a star, and I think she's really kind of outperformed in a lot of ways Mandy Rose, and I think she's one of the best heels I think WWE has to offer currently right now, and I'd like to see what's go with her. I was talking about Sonya Deville. It looks like we're having a little bit technical difficulties.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good. But I was talking about Sonya Deville, how great her character is, being the swagger, the attitude that she has. She's kind of this new version of the man Becky Lynch when Becky turned heel on Charlotte some years ago. What is your thoughts about Sonya Deville, her character or her persona being Daddy Deville, what she's doing on social media? What do you think of her?
I'm so glad that WWE is just like letting her break away and be the character that she always wanted to be. She wanted to be that badass heel in the company, and I know that they partnered her off with Mandy Rose, and I thought they were going to be like this big heel tag team, and it kind of went into like a friendship mode type of thing. But to see her break out and become her own person, to me, is phenomenal. I see her down the line, most likely getting a title shot and actually winning. I hope WWE continues to push her. I know she has like a million creative ideas, and you can definitely tell where she wants to take it as far as like where she's doing like on Twitter and on Instagram and any other social platform that she can get her hands on. She's just like always chomping at the bits, like, and it's showing in her character development when you see her on SmackDown, like her against Lacey Evans. That match was good. Their backstage, confrontations were good. The stuff that she did with Mandy Rose, that was good too, because it's just like, you guys were friends, and then all of a sudden you like kind of turn your back on her, and you just want to make her like miserable, and that's just like exactly who Sonya Deville wants to be as far as like a heel in WWE.
I don't know what their goal is with Sonya. I would like to see her, not right now, but after SummerSlam, be put in the SmackDown Women's title championship picture. I have an idea of who she can face. And I'll say that after we get to the last one I have, and it was the women's tag team match between Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross versus Bayley and Sasha. As we've seen, first of all four women, and I would say this in general, women's wrestling right now is the best it's ever been. I don't care what anybody says. That's just in general across all of wrestling, whether it's WWE, AEW, Stardom, everywhere you go, it's an amazing time. And for me as a fan, I have more favorite women's wrestlers than I think I do men's wrestlers right now because of how great the talent is. We see, as we know, Bayley is the SmackDown Women's Championship, and at the end of it, Bayley and Sasha regain their second two-time women's tag team champions. And I think a lot of, this has happened before. We've seen this where it's kind of sometimes a tag team championship in the men's division is used in a way to jumpstart a feud. A lot of people are thinking that we're eventually going to get to Bayley versus Sasha for the SmackDown Women's Championship, possibly around SummerSlam. It's something that's been talked about for, I think, a number of years. There's been some incidents, I think, that's prevented that from happening. I think there were some injuries and things of that nature. But for me, I actually think this was a good move. Because I think it's going to allow more airtime. I think it's going to do something well for the women's tag team championship, and eventually where it's going to be the end game of, I like to think Sasha would turn babyface and turn on and have one of those moments of just where she snaps and goes after Bayley, and this will lead to a match for the women's SmackDown championship. What are your thoughts on what are your thoughts on um, that match, as well as what are your thoughts on on what it could end up being the end game between Bayley and Sasha?
First of all, I gotta say congratulations to Bayley. Bayley 2 belts now, we can call her, because she has the SmackDown and the tag team titles. The end game for this, I definitely see, Bayley versus Sasha, down the road. I probably most likely SummerSlam. I don't think they're gonna drag this on any more than what it is. I was surprised that they actually put the titles on them, but it kind of makes sense, because you want to get that feud between them. You can see it as each week goes on, when Bayley is starting to become more and more of a heel, and she's being more of that obnoxious heel, which I love. But some fact is, it's like, that eventually this heel is just going to get knocked down by somebody that's more, better than them. And what better person than Sasha Banks to knock her off that pedestal? And I see it most likely it's going to be, they're going to end up losing the tag titles like on Raw to the Iconics, because, the Iconics have come back stronger than ever. So that's probably going to be their game to get them to feud again, where maybe they can say, like, you cost us the tag titles again to the same people all over again. And that could lead into another storyline between Sasha and Bayley going at it, and then ending at SummerSlam.
I agree 100. So we just wrapped up our first episode of Titan Top 10. Again, the goal is to really put a spotlight on 10 either matches or segments that WB has had in this week as a review, and really to focus on the positive aspect of wrestling. In this case, a positive aspect and positive storylines of WWE. As again, my name is JR Perez. This is my tag team partner, Kenny. Any last words before we end this, Kenny?
Everybody just stay safe out there. I know we're going through some hard times right now. Let's just all stick together, and we'll definitely get through this.
100%. Much love to everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we are out of here.